So what are de todos, de todas? My name is Fátima Domínguez Gigante, and I'm going to share with you the research I carried out as part of my master thesis for Wageningen University and Research between December 2018 and July 2019. Currently, this is unpublished work, although we are expecting to have it published and available very soon. My master thesis was developed in the context of scavenger conservation. Carrion is a highly precious and coveted trophic resource by a wide range of vertebrate species, not only obligate scavengers like vultures, but also many other facultative species, some of the ones you can see in the pictures. And as you may already know, the Iberian Peninsula is a hotspot for carrion-consuming species diversity, since it is home for more than 90% of EU vulture populations, and it holds very important populations of predators too, like the Iberian wolf, the golden eagle, or the brown bear. However, after the outbreak of the mad cow disease in the 2000s, it was forbidden to leave livestock carcasses in situ to avoid the spread of the disease. This event was related to a reduction in the breeding performance and individual survival of some scavenger species, and to vulture attacks to live livestock being reported more frequently. Due to the negative consequences resulting from this prohibition, and after several intermediate modifications, 2 European laws were settled in 2009 and 2011 that allowed again the disposal of livestock carcasses in certain areas. These areas were called scavenger feeding zones that were supposed to be established by the competent authorities of each member state to guarantee food availability for wildlife for up to 51 vertebrate species. This was the first time that EU regulations recognized the importance of carrion as a key resource in ecosystems and highlighted the importance of it being unpredictable, both in space and time. Not only that, but they also recognize the importance that certain anthropic activities like livestock farming have for scavenger conservation. However, although these laws are directly applicable to the member states, in the case of the Iberian Peninsula, when the research was carried out, Spain had transposed these EU regulations into national and regional laws, meaning that each autonomous community had their own rules and criteria for establishing scavenger feeding zones, whereas Portugal had transposed them too, but it had adapted its legislation to allow progressively livestock carcasses to be left outside of feeding stations. But it was not until the summer of 2019, after this research was carried out, that there was a clear statement about the establishment of scavenger feeding zones. Meaning that until that moment, there were some legislation gaps that avoided effective applications of these regulations in Portugal, and therefore in practice, it was very difficult for Portuguese farmers to leave livestock carcasses in the field. But this situation may appear pointless for scavenger conservation, since scavenger foraging ranges clearly transgress political borders. Here, an image of a griffon vulture doing periodic movements between Spain and Portugal. In this research, we focus our work on extensive livestock farmers, since in practice, they are the ones being affected directly by these changes in EU regulations, and therefore they play a key role in ensuring there is carrion available for scavengers. We wanted to check, first of all, how did farmers perceive scavenger species, how did they perceive regulations in place, as well as livestock carcass management methods established. We also wanted to check whether farmers' perceptions of scavengers differ under different implementation schemes of EU regulations, or if there were other factors driving the differences, of course, if existing. For this purpose, we collected data through 109 semi-structured interviews in the borderline between Spain and Portugal in the Douro Valley. These interviews had closed and open questions, and the data was analyzed through a mixed methods approach, meaning that it was analyzed through qualitative and quantitative methods. Our first result is summarized in this picture. Here we see farmers' valuation of a species on a 5-category scale from very harmful to very beneficial, from red to green. That's what the bar is representing here. With the red star, you can see significant differences in scavenger perceptions between Spain and Portugal. At first sight, we can see that in general, Portuguese farmers have a more positive perception of scavengers than Spanish farmers, since their perceptions are more situated towards the right-hand side of the bar. This trend is also shared, as you can see in the grouping variables, all scavengers, generalists, and vultures. We can also see a very interesting case, that is the Iberian wolf. As you may know, it's a predator that has traditionally entered into conflict with livestock farming, and it holds a negative perception in Spain and Portugal with no significant differences. This is different for vultures, for griffon vulture and for cinereous vultures, that have traditionally peacefully coexisted with farmers, but that were considered beneficial in Portugal, but they were in between the harmful and neutral categories in Spain. Why is this difference? In Portugal, we find that farmers highlight the positive value of vultures as their cleaning roles. Meanwhile, in Spain, they highlight sometimes that vultures can attack a live livestock, and that's why they consider them sometimes harmful. One of our main hypotheses was that differences in farmers' perceptions of scavengers were due to the different implementation of EU regulations. However, we did not find significant effects of legislation knowledge nor compliance on farmers' perceptions, probably because only 10.1% of farmers actually knew the regulations in place. This graph shows the livestock carcass management methods used by farmers interviewed. We can see that the majority of Spanish farmers use a carcass collection system, while Portuguese farmers prefer to leave carcasses in situ or to bury livestock carcasses. These results suggest that Portuguese farmers were somehow updated and following the 2017 regulations, while Spanish farmers were somehow outdated and following previous regulations that established a carcass collection system as the only way possible to manage carcasses. Interestingly, we also find more Portuguese farmers leaving carcasses in situ in Portugal, where it was not formally allowed, than in Spain, where it is allowed since 2013. Okay. Oh, wait. Okay, there we are. Okay, there we go. Sorry. We also tested whether the way farmers were managing their carcasses had any effect on the way they perceive scavengers. And that's why I have here the griffon vulture. Because we only found significant results for one species, this one here, the griffon. And this table shows that those farmers that bury livestock carcasses, or those that use a mix of different methods, or the only farmer, Portuguese, that was bringing carcasses to a scavenger feeding station, held a more negative perception of the griffon vulture than those who left carcasses in situ. However, the differences with those farmers using a livestock carcass collection system were not significant, which could well be because, well, actually very few farmers were leaving livestock carcasses in situ. This could support why we don't get a significant level. Okay, here, I'm going to, okay. And to finish with, this is a slide with a summary of the results. So we found that there were differences in farmers' perceptions of scavengers between Spain and Portugal, but they were not related to legislation knowledge nor compliance. The only species that was related to carcass management system was the griffon vulture, that was considered beneficial in Portugal and harmful in Spain. We conclude that scavenger conservation needs transboundary implementation efforts by, for example, homogenizing regulations, on-ground work with local farmers, and on-ground monitoring of carcasses available for scavengers in the field. A more general message that we can extract from this research is that enforcement of environmental regulations cannot be assumed. It should systematically be assessed. I would like to highlight that there is already a Portuguese NGO doing work following our recommendations and conclusions. It's called Palombar, and it's working in the northeast of Portugal. And they are already doing on-ground work with farmers, informing farmers of current regulations to enhance compliance. And they are also doing on-ground monitoring of carcasses to allow the development of better estimates of scavenger feeding requirements. This is a slide with some of the references I used in this presentation. And to finish with, I would like to say thank you to all the farmers that accepted to be interviewed. This project was funded by the Live Rubies project, and Palombar and ATN collaborated in the research. And yeah, thank you all for listening. And muito obrigada to SPECO for letting me present at this conference.